Relax. It's ASMR. Hello, everyone. Well, it's been a week or two since I've been able to post a video, and I'm sorry for that. But as you may know, I've been taking some classes getting my master's degree. So I've been shooting videos, but they have been for my class. Because one of the classes I'm taking is philosophy and art. So I thought what I would do is take some of that effort that I've been putting into my class and turn it into a video for you guys. So this may be a little bit different than a typical ASMR video, but I hope it helps you relax and fall asleep and experience some ASMR anyway. And maybe learn some things too along the way. Maybe this will be a new branch of ASMR, educational ASMR. So anyway, one of the classes that I'm taking, like I said, is dealing with art. And so one of the projects I had to do was comparing two works of art, one that was pre-1900 and one that was post-1900, and talk about the philosophies in those works, as well as comparing and contrasting the paintings themselves. So I was going to show you the two paintings that I used, and then read you the short essay that I wrote, and then talk a little bit more about the art. So these are the two pieces that I chose. Turn them around here so you can see them. So this one here is the pre-1900 piece, and this one here is the post-1900 piece. This one portrays a story out of Greek mythology. This is Penelope. This is her son. And this is a statue of her husband, Agamemnon. And the story goes that Agamemnon took an adventure out to sea to fight a war and was not coming back. And pretty soon everyone just assumed that he was dead and that he was not coming back. And when that happened, suitors from all around started showing up in order to take Penelope's hand in marriage, or some sort of arranged situation. And she had to host and put up with all of these men coming from all around. And they were putting a tremendous amount of pressure on her. And she did not want to have anything to do with it. So she finally came up with a plan and told them that when she was done with weaving a certain amount of cloth, or a net, or something she was weaving, that when she came to the end of that, she would then pick one of them to be her husband, or her benefactor, or something. So what she did was she started the weaving, and then every night she would pull some of it out and unravel it. And that way she was able to keep the men happy and at least waiting and at bay, while she herself was waiting for her husband Agamemnon to come home. And in the story, of course, he was not dead. He was merely having a very difficult time getting home. So she proved her loyalty and her patience and her love for her family and her husband. So here we see her unraveling her weaving and looking at her son in the presence of a statue which reminds her of her husband. And this style of painting is called Chiaroscuro, which means light and shadow, because it emphasizes usually one singular point of illumination in the painting, and that one spot of illumination lights up the things that the artist wants to highlight, and everything else in the painting falls into dark, deep shadow. So it's a very dramatic way of painting, and it was very popular during this neoclassical period of art. So here we have a typical scene as interpreted by neoclassic painters of what a scene in Greece would look like. So we have some rich drapery and some pedestals and some carved stonework here and these pillars. And then we have her weaving and their clothing, which is supposedly Greek, but I don't know how accurate that is. And then here we have in the shadows a dog, which is another symbol for loyalty. So using symbolic imagery and emphasizing and portraying Greek and Roman mythology was also a very common theme in neoclassical painting. So the next painting, or this is an etching, it's not a painting, was done in the 1940s, I believe. I have it written down in my paper. And it is called Waiting. And this is a scene that portrays a mother sitting on a couch of some sort, or some sort of seat, and her exhausted son completely just conked out on her lap. And I really like this piece of artwork because it shows a great deal of character and strength in the part of the woman, and that she is waiting, but it's not a just defeated, just zoned out waiting. It is an active, engaged waiting. She's sitting here, but she is also at the same time taking charge of this space and taking care of her son. And it's very bright and light. The areas of the brightest pieces of the painting or etching are almost overexposed. They're like brilliantly white. And I don't know how that would look in the actual painting if I saw it in real life. But from what I could tell online, there was a definite contrast between the bright parts and the darker parts, but it's not as dramatic as Chiaroscuro. Light definitely is filtering throughout the entire painting. So there's not a whole lot of symbolism here. This is just a painting of a woman in New York City with her child in the middle of the 1900s. So why don't I read you exactly what I wrote, and I think that'll give you a little bit more detail about the painting. So the first painting is called Penelope Unraveling Her Web, and it was painted in 1784. And this one is called Waiting. It is an etching in 1930, and it is by Isabel Bishop. So the first one I talk about is this one. Waiting by the bed of her sleeping son, Penelope methodically undoes her day's work of weaving. Her house is full of men waiting to take her for their own. They are waiting for her to admit that her husband, Agamemnon, is lost at sea, never to return. His statue stands guard over the family, but he cannot save her. Her fate rests in her own hands, in the weaving that she must never finish. In painting this scene, Joseph Wright is telling the story of a wife's loyalty. And then this one. The scene is unclear. Perhaps it is a train station or a small shop somewhere in New York City. But here sits a young mother and her sleeping son. Any knowledge we have of this pair must be gleaned from within the borders of the frame. She sits in a relaxed stance, staring out into a world with quiet determination over the form of her exhausted boy. In this etching, Isabel Bishop tells us the story of a mother's patience. Joseph Wright was a painter whose work spans the transition between neoclassicism and romanticism, and he showed himself adept at both styles. His landscapes are lush, atmospheric, and pastoral. But in Penelope Unraveling Her Web, we see Joseph Wright displaying the style for which he was most famous. The Chiaroscuro play of light and dark, a hallmark of his neoclassic work, emphasizes the two poles of Penelope's love. The sleeping form of her son seems to emanate its own light, while the dark silhouette of her absent husband towers over the entire scene. Wright shows neoclassicism's penchant for Greco-Roman allegory, as well as an Enlightenment emphasis on classical form and balance. Isabel Bishop was an illustrator and painter who lived in New York City and documented in her art the lives of the new class of professional working women in the city. She is part of the 14th Street School of Artists, which is where she had her studio for more than 44 years. Her work is best described as urban realism and can also be considered social conscious art for the fact that it provides subtle criticism of the masculine, modern, capitalist society in which her female subjects were enmeshed. While she was never of the school of abstract expressionism, she wanted to handle pure light and the human form as it cut along that light. In Waiting, we see all of these themes emerge in a powerful scene of maternal provision and patience. The importance of light in their work unites these two artists in general and can be seen in these two works particularly. For most of Wright's paintings, light is a symbol of man's forward progress in the knowledge of the Enlightenment. But in this painting, he uses it to show us a source of Penelope's hope. And I printed out another painting by Wright that shows a typical scene that he would also paint. He had a series of these that used the chiaroscuro effect, but it emphasized the progress of the time in which he was living, which was right at the beginning of the real exploration and understanding and application of the scientific method, and the things that it was uncovering were miraculous to them, and the universe was starting to unfold, and the concepts of the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason and the humanism that came with the writings of Locke and others, philosophers of the time, that were getting away from religious symbolism and moving into celebrating the knowledge and understanding and power of human ingenuity and spirit. So in this painting, light represents knowledge and forward progress. And this is a scientist showing off an orrery, which is a model of the solar system and the universe as they understood it at the time. So it's hard to see down here, but this would be little balls on rotating sticks that would represent the rotation of the planets around the sun. So now we're back to talking about this painting. The light from this single source subtly illuminates the scene, casting a glow on Penelope's face, and at the same time showing us the outline of the hero father. For Wright, light is a tool, a way to emphasize and communicate. It bends to his will to accomplish his goal. Shuffling a lot of paper here. For Bishop, light is a subject on par with the figures that it reveals. It suffuses the entire image, obscuring the background in a hazy glow, playing on the faces of the mother and child, and providing a warm blessing on what could easily be a dreary scene. It is light being light. I'm switching back and forth between these two, so I should probably just leave them up like this. Typical of neoclassical paintings, Wright creates on his canvas a carefully arranged scene for the viewer. It is a stage he uses to instruct us in the nobility and value of loyalty and encourage us to follow the example of Penelope. The faith in human virtue is every bit as strong here as in any religious painting. The rich, archaic drapery and Greek statue place us in a time removed from our own and focus us back to the symbolism of what we see, complete with a loyal dog standing in the shadows beside his mistress. In Waiting, we see none of this call to a higher plane of nobility. There is no particular ethic being espoused here beyond a general utilitarian appeal to shared humanity. The waiting mother stands in for no one but herself and the thousands like her in the city. She is not surrounded by a supporting cast of symbolic figures. She is all that is needed in this boy's life. She is even his bed. Instead of the inward-facing gaze of the dutiful Penelope, in Waiting, we see a relaxed, determined gaze focused outward on the world, looking out for what's next. We don't know what she's waiting for. It could be her husband, or a bus, or simply for the child to wake up. But no matter the reason, she is not waiting passively. Her posture is upright, her feet are planted wide, and she commands her space with confidence. Here is no dutiful queen, but an empress. It is no mistake the bishop portrays her with more than a passing resemblance to the painting Napoleon on his imperial throne. These artists are linked by more than a common subject matter. They each stand on either side of the industrial era. Wright was full of hope and excitement at the progress that the Enlightenment's emphasis on science and reason would bring to the Western world. Bishop and her subjects live in a world shaped by that progress. Her paintings are not of imagined virtue, told through remote symbols, but of tangible human experience written on the faces and in the bodies of those around her. The veil of unknowing was indeed torn away from human understanding as Wright had hoped. But what was revealed was not what he expected. What was found was simply a woman sitting with her exhausted son, waiting for whatever comes next. So that was the paper that I wrote about these two paintings. And I wanted to show you the painting of Napoleon on his imperial throne to look at the similarities between this woman and Napoleon. We have the same focused gaze that's not exactly stern. It is relaxed, but it is powerful and alert and active. We have a great deal of similarity in the shape of the face, in the set of the mouth, and the brow going straight across, not quite furrowed. And we also have here what looks like could be a laurel wreath on this woman's head that is very similar to the golden laurel wreath around Napoleon's head. And then we have this bright white collar that is surrounding her face. And we see the same thing here on this painting. And we also have the stance of the feet are wide. Here's one leg, and the other leg is over here somewhere. So we see that he's sitting in a powerful stance, and so is she. So I thought that was fascinating to compare these two. One is a royal emperor of much of Europe at the time, and another is just a woman waiting for her child to wake up, or waiting for a bus, or waiting for something. But she's doing it in a very active manner that portrays strength and dignity. So those are the type of things that I've been doing for my class, which I'm thoroughly enjoying, even though it takes up a lot of my time. I think it's worth it. So if you like more of this type of stuff, I can read some more of the things I've written, or kind of talk about some of the things that I'm exploring in my class. So let me know what you think, and I will be in this class for the next few months, and then I'll be off for the summer. So I will be posting more videos in the summer, but I hope to have one or two posted before then, depending on how busy my schedule gets. But thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Even though my rate of video making may have slowed a little bit, I will still continue to make videos. So you might not be getting them every week, but you will still be getting them. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.